I bet you can play wonderfully, mother-in-law. My eldest son's wife, Lulu, smirked as she said this to me. She probably intends to embarrass me in this family gathering. Lulu, her only pride being her elite conservatory background, is desperate to seize the grand piano in my house. I, too, have reached the end of my patience. My name is Myra Brown, and I just turned 60 this year. My husband has already passed away, and my 3 sons each have families of their own. I currently live alone in a mansion that is far too large for one person. I'm an elderly person living alone, though. Fortunately, my eldest son and his wife live nearby. It's comforting to know that my eldest son, Scott, wants me to consult with him if I have any problems. Perhaps it would be best to sell this mansion and move into an apartment or condominium that's suitable for one person. But there's a reason I can't move. It's the grand piano that my late husband gifted to me. As long as this piano is here, I don't think I'll ever leave this mansion. But this grand piano is causing a lot of friction. The name of Scott's wife is Lulu. She is the one causing the problem. She's the kind of woman who flaunts her elite music university education, and I've found her a bit difficult to deal with since we first met. However, I didn't impose my opinion, as she's the woman my son chose. My eldest son and his wife got married hastily due to her pregnancy. But after they got married, it turns out that she was mistaken about being pregnant. I was dumbfounded, but my kind-hearted eldest son saying things like, "Everyone makes mistakes," comforted her. Men don't understand the ulterior motives that women can have. I think Lulu really wanted to marry Scott. I don't mean to boast as a mother, but Scott is tall, high-earning, and handsome. He's also very gentle and kind. I just can't bring myself to like her when I think she took advantage of Scott's kindness. It seems Lulu finds me difficult to deal with as well. She tries to act respectful to me as a mother-in-law, but I can see through to her belittling me at heart. It probably comes from the fact that I play the piano as a hobby. I've never played the piano in front of her. She's challenged me several times by saying things like, "I would love to hear you play," but I've always turned it down. I play the piano in memory of my late husband. That's how it's always been and will continue to be. I didn't want to explain this to her over and over. How could she laugh in such a sneering, mocking way and still sit in front of the piano? I'm truly fed up with being told this every time we meet. Last week, Lulu gave me a hard time again. It is comforting that we live close to each other, but it's a bit problematic because we share the same neighbors. Lulu loves gossip and has a habit of spreading baseless rumors. When she and Scott just got married, she told the neighbors that I was strongly against the marriage and that she had a miscarriage due to the stress, which was complete fabrication. She was never pregnant in the first place, and a miscarriage was impossible. Not to mention the stress of being opposed to marriage. She was trying to portray herself as a tragic heroine by making me out to be the villain. "Lulu, aren't you spreading lies about me to the neighbors?" Even though they were newly married, I found it impossible to turn a blind eye to this. I confronted her. Lulu looked a tad guilty, but eventually she seemed to brazen it out, with her typical smirk playing around her lips. "Mother-in-law, this is so unfair. I don't know where you heard such rumors, but it's unfair to trust the words of others more than you trust me. Am I not a part of the family yet?" The slick-tongued Lulu started to approach me, making it look as if I was the one at fault. even resorting to the act of welling up her eyes with tears. I was stunned at her audacity. The nerve of her, lying and evading the issue with such a shameless boldness. My son, Scott, also came to know about this, and gently I found myself being the one chastised. Much to my chagrin, but considering this was happening so soon after their wedding, I eventually decided to let it slide and leave it unresolved. With a mother-in-law versus daughter-in-law dispute, I was always going to be the one at a disadvantage. Rather than having another baseless rumor spread, I decided to endure this one. And then recently a similar situation occurred. One morning, the neighborhood ladies who were chatting in front of the house quickly changed their expressions as soon as they saw me. From their reactions, I had a hunch that something had happened. It was the exact same response as before. "Good morning." As I greeted them, they dispersed like startled spiders. I felt that another strange rumor was being circulated. As soon as I returned home, I reached out to the neighbor I was most friendly with. "I'm sorry for calling so early in the morning." While explaining the incident, I asked her if another strange rumor about me was being spread. She hesitated, but then informed me about the rumor. That I was responsible for shortening my husband's life, an absolutely baseless rumor. The gossip detailed that I had a penchant for extravagance, and my husband had to continue working even after his retirement, leading to his death from overwork. But my husband had already passed away by the time Lulu became my daughter-in-law. She shouldn't have any basis to speak about him. Upon hearing my explanation, my friend agreed with me. She would play a part in clearing the misunderstanding with the neighbors. This gave me some relief, as I felt that the spread of the rumor would be prevented. However, once I was relieved, my anger towards Lulu started bubbling up again. After her marriage, Lulu quit her job to become a full-time housewife. She seemed bored during the day, so she'd often gather the young neighborhood wives and engage in gossip. She probably used some made-up rumor about me as fodder for their daily chit-chat. The fact that she used my dear late husband for entertainment was unbearable. I finished breakfast and decided to pay a visit to my eldest son's home. I arrived at Scott's house around 9:30 a.m., I believe. Scott had already left for work. When I called out from the front door, Lulu, with her hair all disheveled, appeared from the bedroom. "What? Lulu, you just woke up?" I was taken aback and raised my voice unintentionally. Mother-in-law, it's quite inconvenient if you come over without informing me beforehand. What's the matter? So early in the morning?" Lulu, just woken up and seemingly grumpy, muttered her complaints. The living room was in a mess, clearly not well cleaned. Even though I lived close by, I try not to interfere with my son and daughter-in-law's life, and so I rarely visit their home. However, the current situation is unbearable. "I'm sorry I didn't get in touch. It was an emergency situation. I apologize." After offering an apology for not getting in touch, I get down to the matter at hand. "Couldn't you have resolved it over the phone? Why bother coming all the way here?" She seems profoundly bothered by my visit. She sits deep into the couch in her pajamas, crossing her legs. It almost feels like she's looking down on me. Standing in front of Lulu, I suppress the anger that's welling up inside of me. I cautiously ask her about the rumor without raising my voice. Then she snorts, "Oh, that? LOL. Could you please explain what you mean? I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't spread strange rumors." "Huh? But it's the truth, isn't it?" Lulu grins again, stating her point. On what basis are you claiming such a thing? I lose my cool due to her attitude and my tone gets harsher, yet she remains unperturbed. The grand piano is the proof. You pestered your husband to get it for you, didn't you? I've never seen you playing it. LOL. Lulu insinuates that I had whimsically made my husband buy a grand piano that I don't even play. She understands the value of that piano. Of course, being a music college graduate, she would. Don't you think it's a sheer waste to beg for a piano that you can't even play? I'm starting to feel sorry for my father-in-law, LOL. Lulu completely mocks me. I am at a loss for words due to her audacity. Seeing me silent, she laughs. Can't rebuttal because it's true, haha. I find it impossible to discuss my precious memories with my husband with this woman. It feels as if our cherished memories would be tarnished. So, I could do nothing but stay silent. Going silent when the going gets tough. I stand up from the sofa and say to Lulu, "Sorry for disturbing you." She laughs in a victorious manner. As I exit the living room, her high-pitched laughter pierces my back. I feel frustrated and tearful when I get home. Since that rumor incident, I've been keeping a distance from my eldest son and his wife. Honestly, I don't want to see Lulu ever again. I do feel sorry for my son, Scott. However, thinking about my son being stuck in the middle of this mother-in-law, daughter-in-law issue and struggling, I believe that the best solution is for me not to approach Lulu. Regardless of how much you try to avoid, there are times when avoidance isn't possible. Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Day are such times. On top of that, this year, I will be turning 60. Scott called to celebrate my milestone birthday. My sons and their wives living out of state, in places like Texas or Minnesota, seem to be coming home as well. They are planning to gather all the relatives, including my husband's sister, and celebrate my 60th birthday. I am truly happy to see my out-of-state children, their spouses, and my grandchildren after a long time. I have no choice but to turn a blind eye to Lulu just for this day. I kept telling myself that. From the day before the birthday celebration, the grandchildren living out of state started returning home one after another, making the house bustling with activity. Usually being alone, the sudden increase in people almost made my head spin. The grandkids were all lively, running around the mansion. Among them, one girl, the daughter of my second son, quietly gazed at my piano. "Do you like the piano?" When I asked, my granddaughter nodded. I remembered being consulted by my daughter-in-law about her being shy and reserved. Apparently, she was having trouble making friends even in kindergarten, and it was a cause for concern. "Do you want to try playing?" At my words, my granddaughter's face lit up brightly. As I opened the lid of the piano, she reached out hesitantly. When I sat her on the chair, she asked in a tiny voice, "Can I play it?" "Of course. Go ahead." My granddaughter pressed a key with her small finger. A beautiful sound echoed. The spreading sound seemed to surprise her. She repeated pressing the keys many times, closing her eyes to feel the spread and echo of the sound. Looking at her side profile, I thought I wouldn't mind leaving the piano to this girl. Hearing the sound of the piano, my daughter-in-law appeared, saying, "Sorry, mother-in-law." Seeing her own mother suddenly appear, my granddaughter seemed surprised, returning from her world of sound. "It seems like she likes the piano. Is she taking piano lessons?" When I asked my daughter-in-law, she replied that they hadn't started her on piano lessons yet. They couldn't afford it, she said. Indeed, my second son's family had many kids. They were raising 5 children. It must be true that they're financially strained. I see. You should rely on me more. Don't hesitate. My daughter-in-law nodded happily at my words and bowed her head, saying thank you. I wish Lulu was a bit like her. I was wondering who was playing, Lulu said loudly as she entered the room without hesitation. She glanced at my granddaughter sitting at the piano and scolded, "It's not a toy. It's not a piano for a child to touch. You don't know its value, and you can't play it, you audacious child." Lulu attempted to push my granddaughter away, who was sitting in front of the piano. My granddaughter seemed to think she was being scolded and got off the chair with a scared look. She then hid behind my daughter-in-law. "This piano is not for anyone but music elites like me to touch. It's not a toy for children, and certainly not for the elderly either." Her last statement was likely a sarcastic remark aimed at me. My daughter-in-law quietly bowed to Lulu and took my granddaughter to the yard. Lulu, who had been watching them leave with her arms crossed, tried to sit on the now empty chair in front of the piano. I hastily closed the lid of the piano. I really didn't want her touching my precious piano. It was a spur-of-the-moment reaction, and Lulu glared at me. "This piano holds precious memories with my husband. I don't want someone who would push a child aside to play it, to touch it. I'm sorry." Facing Lulu's glare, I smiled sweetly. She clicked her tongue. She must have felt my strong will to not let her play. "Let me be frank, since it's a good opportunity. This piano is wasted on you, mother-in-law. Don't you think it'd be more fitting for someone like me? I'd be happy to take it off your hands." Her eyes did not reflect the joviality of her words. It was clear that Lulu was serious. The next night, a party was held to celebrate my 60th birthday, with all relatives gathering. It had been a long time since everyone had come back home, apart from my eldest son and his wife. My children and their spouses were at the forefront, organizing a grand celebration for my milestone birthday. It was a bit embarrassing to put on the red cardigan they gifted me, but being celebrated by everyone was much more pleasant than I had anticipated. The celebration was made even more lively with a musical gift from my grandchildren. As everyone clapped at the end of the grandchildren's performance, Lulu suddenly chimed in. "That's right, let's have the mother-in-law play the piano." Her suggestion seemed spur of the moment, but I could tell she had been waiting for this opportunity to embarrass me. At Lulu's words, my sons joined in. "We've never heard you play." I had only played the piano when it was just my husband and me. My children had never heard me perform. "With such a marvelous piano in possession, mother-in-law, you must be quite the player," she said with her signature smirk. "I would only be a displeasure to your ears, and it'd be embarrassing to perform during such a celebration." I tried to escape the situation with a harmless brush-off, but Lulu kept pressing on. "Oh, so you got such an expensive piano but can't play? That would mean you're quite the spendthrift. Guess the rumors were true, huh?" At her continual taunts, even my eldest son, normally quite reserved, raised his voice. "Hey, now." But Lulu was not one to be quieted by such words. Scott looked at me with a troubled expression. "I suppose it can't be helped. I'll make an exception today." Unable to bear seeing my son's troubled face, I started walking towards the piano. A quick patter of small footsteps followed, and my granddaughter, who loved the piano, clung to my side. She was clearly looking forward to hearing me play, her cheeks slightly flushed with anticipation. I wonder what kind of performance it will be. 3 blind mice at best, I assume. As I opened the piano lid and took my seat, Lulu sneered. Her attitude caused the daughters-in-law to furrow their brows. Lulu was not particularly liked among them. She always took full advantage of her status as the wife of the eldest son, often looking down on the others. The piano keys, which I hadn't touched in a while, felt cold and comforting. Since I had it tuned regularly, the piano was always ready to be played. After warming up my wrists, I let my fingers dance across the keys. The first piece I chose was Chopin's Ballad No. 4 in F minor, Opus No. 52. From its serene beginning to the technically demanding parts, it is a challenging piece. Lulu appeared to recognize the piece as soon as I started playing and froze with a shocked expression on her face. Playing the piano after a long time somehow made all the unpleasant things feel irrelevant. I played several technically challenging pieces my husband loved and ended with a jazz arrangement of a popular cartoon theme song that my children loved. The moment all the performances were over, my entire family cheered and applauded me. My little granddaughter wrapped her arms around my knee, excitedly exclaiming, "Awesome! Awesome!" The only one who seemed discontent among the relatives was Lulu. I flashed her a warm smile. "So it was true that Mom was a pianist. I thought Dad was joking." My eldest son, Scott, commented with a hint of excitement in his voice. I had made sure that my children, especially Scott, would never discover that I was a pianist. After graduating from the Vienna Conservatory, I had started my journey as a pianist, and that's when I met my husband and gave birth to Scott. When my mother-in-law forced me to choose between the piano and my husband, I chose my husband and Scott after much anguish. To ensure that Scott wouldn't feel burdened by this, my husband and I hid this truth. After I declared I would never touch the piano again, my husband bought this piano for me, asking that I play only for him. I later found out that my mother-in-law also played a role in purchasing the piano. It seemed they bought this piano, replacing the dream they had taken away from me. To me, this piano was a precious item that affirmed the bond with my husband and the love from my mother-in-law. I had no intention of handing it over to someone who merely desired its monetary value. By the way, I don't think I've ever heard Lulu play. "Mom, would it be okay if Lulu played a piece?" Scott asked me. "What? Isn't Lulu a graduate from a top music school? You've never heard her play?" I was somewhat surprised by Scott's words. Then I remembered. There's no piano at Scott and Lulu's house. That did seem unusual. "Lulu, would you mind playing something? I'd love to hear it too." I stood up from the chair in front of the piano, intending to let Lulu take my place, but Lulu didn't sit down. Just the other day, she was leaning back comfortably in this chair, and now she seemed to recoil in fear. She was pale. "I'm not feeling well today," she excused herself, trying to escape the situation. "Not feeling well? After all that food and drink? Or is there another reason you can't play the piano?" I couldn't believe it, and I decided to confront her. Lulu mumbled some excuses. "You wouldn't lie about graduating from a top music school, would you?" Lulu flinched at my words. "What? Was I right? Have you been lying about everything except the pregnancy?" I unintentionally raised my voice. Lulu's face turned pale. She looked like she was about to faint. "You're not telling me you lied about graduating from a top music school?" Scott also questioned Lulu, seemingly surprised. Lulu fell silent as if she had forgotten how to speak. Our youngest 3-year-old grandchild toddled over, pulling out the leaflet from Lulu's back pocket. She handed it to me innocently, saying, "Here." Maybe she was trying to diffuse the tension in her own small way. I smiled at her, saying thank you, and took the leaflet, only to be shocked. The leaflet was advertising a high-priced used piano purchase service. The likely phone-confirmed purchase price was scribbled on the leaflet in ballpoint pen. "Lulu, you were planning to sell my piano?" I couldn't hold it back anymore. I yelled at Lulu and showed the leaflet to the relatives. The whole family peered at the leaflet, staring at Lulu in disbelief. She seemed unable to bear their gaze and ran home as if escaping. The person who suffered the most from this commotion was my eldest son, Scott. The wife he had always believed in had been proven to be a big liar. We couldn't find the right words to comfort Scott. Afterwards, Scott and Lulu divorced. It seemed that Scott had reached his limit with Lulu's incessant lies. Moreover, Lulu had a habit of spending extravagantly and was secretly in deep debt. She apparently planned to repay the debt with the money from selling my piano. Once Scott found out about Lulu's debt repayment plan, he immediately filed for divorce. Lulu, who had lived a married life full of lies, was now jobless and supposedly hiding out at her parents' home. I hear debt collectors are visiting her parents' house daily. I decided to open a small piano school afterwards. Some neighborhood kids are attending. The piano seems to emit a joyous sound when played by the children. Apparently, the granddaughter has also started taking piano lessons. After hearing me play, the wife of the second son was so moved that she decided to have her child learn the piano. I'm subsidizing the monthly piano lessons. The once quiet mansion is now filled with the voices of children, becoming quite lively. I believe my husband would be delighted.
My first time dealing with a serious illness was far more difficult than I could have ever imagined. I was unable to move as freely as I wanted, and breathing was a struggle. My husband, who scorned my ill self, saying, "We don't need a bald and sickly woman," added insult to injury. As my body cried out in pain, my heart cried out too when I discovered my husband's affair. How could he cheat on me in this condition? I will never forgive him. I am determined to recover from this illness and make him regret his actions. My name is Alyssa. I am 30 years old. I was living happily with my husband Bob, whom I married a year ago. One day, on my way home from work, I was suddenly struck with immense physical pain and collapsed at the subway station. I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, and after a series of detailed examinations, it was confirmed. I had cancer. Cancer. Me? Is there some kind of mistake? I, who had never had any significant illness before, and was always in good health, devastated by this cancer diagnosis. It's not too late to treat it, but if you don't start treatment immediately, it could be dangerous. I felt like I had been hit over the head at the doctor's words. But wait a minute. I've never had any issues in my company's health screenings before. The regular health screenings at workplaces often fail to detect diseases. It's not unusual for diseases to be detected only after detailed examinations, like tumor markers and brain scans, like in your case. I can't believe it. Please come back with a family member later. We need to discuss treatment plans. The doctor's words made my vision spin. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. When I left the doctor's office, I found a flurry of missed calls from my husband on my phone. It seemed he had been contacted when I was taken to the hospital by ambulance. He had come rushing to the hospital, but he couldn't find me and had been calling me incessantly. When I told him where I was, he came right away. The moment I saw his face, all the tension I had been holding in snapped, and tears started flowing down my cheeks. Bob, what do I do? I have cancer. Cancer? You, Alyssa? You must be joking. I don't want to believe it either, but if we don't start the treatment soon, it might be too late. That's what the doctor said. Unbelievable. Bob, am I going to die? Don't say that. Of course you'll make it. Please, don't talk like that. Surrounded by other patients, I wept uncontrollably in my husband's arms. I didn't have the luxury to worry about other people. Clinging to my husband was the only way I could keep myself together. The next day, we returned to the hospital together to discuss our next steps with the primary physician. As expected, I was hospitalized immediately, and it was suggested I start chemotherapy right away. It's only been a year since we got married. Now my husband and I had to live apart. Despite this, Bob would come to cheer me up almost every day. Alyssa, I'm here. How are you feeling today? Bob, isn't your work hectic? You don't have to force yourself to come. What are you talking about? You're more important than work. But don't worry about it. Oh, I brought you some apples. You like them, don't you? Thanks, but the side effects cause severe nausea. Oh, right, I'm sorry. I also bought you some drinks and jelly. Eat them when you're feeling good. All right, I will. Thanks, Bob. My first experience with being ill was far more difficult than I had imagined, taking a toll on my body. Nausea and fatigue, coupled with the daily sight of massive hair loss. Unable to eat properly, my body quickly thinned down. The days when I thought I should diet now seemed a lifetime ago. I never thought I would lose weight like this. Between the physical and mental distress, I felt like I was falling apart. But that wasn't all. Each time he came to visit, my husband started to look away from me. You've lost a lot of weight. Bob, will you hold my hand? I reached out to my husband, but he flinched slightly, muttered, sorry, and walked out of the hospital room. His attitude left me in shock. Why? Did I do something wrong? Why do I have to go through this? I just wanted to live a normal life with Bob. Not having the luxury to think about others, I was plunged into a daily rut of self-loathing. Why me? Why is this happening to me? I would think this almost every day. However, I was able to continue my struggle with my illness, thanks to my best friend Lily. I couldn't tell anyone else that I had cancer, but I confided in her. As soon as I reached out to her, Lily rushed to the hospital. Ever since then, she's been coming to visit me in the ward whenever she can, despite her busy schedule. Alyssa, I'm here. Oh, Lily, you just came last week, too. Thank you. No worries. I've got time, and talking with you is more fun. Thanks, but I'm just, What do you mean? I mean, I look completely different now, don't I? I've lost all my hair. You must feel uncomfortable around me. Lily sighed heavily and responded in a slightly angry tone. Hey, how long do you think we've been best friends? It's been 10 years. 10 years! Yeah, I know, but I wouldn't stop liking you just because your appearance has changed a little. Don't insult my feelings for you, Alyssa. Lily, so you don't have to worry about it. I just come to see you because I want to, not because I have to. Okay. Anyway, you need to get better soon. Remember that dessert place we wanted to go to? We still haven't been there yet. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Lily. Lily, always holding my hand, kept encouraging me gently. Thanks to her, I could vent my frustrations that I couldn't share with my husband. Time passed, and about 2 months later, I noticed something. My husband, who used to visit me nearly every day since I was hospitalized, hadn't shown up for a while. Even when I sent him a text on WhatsApp, the only response I got was, "I can't. I'm working late." Feeling really lonely, I decided to give him a call. "Hello, Bob?" Maybe it was because I called during his lunch break, but my husband answered the phone immediately. "Ah, Alyssa, what's up? I haven't seen you at all recently, so I thought, I just wanted to hear your voice." "Ah, I see. Sorry, but I'm a bit busy right now." "What? But isn't it your lunch break now?" "I've got some things to do. Sorry. I have to hang up." "What? Wait, Bob." The phone was hung up on me, and even after sending a message on WhatsApp, I received no response. Why? He used to visit me often. Could it be something happened while I was not around? Just when I started to feel uneasy, my best friend Lily came to me with an unusually gloomy expression. She tried to act as usual, but I could tell immediately that something was different. "Hey, Lily, did something happen?" Upon my inquiry, she showed obvious signs of disturbance. Why? Nothing's wrong." "But you seem different. You seem to be forcing yourself to be cheerful." "There's really nothing. Instead, did you see the news online? That comedian you like." "Lily, please, just tell me." When I looked straight into her eyes, Lily awkwardly averted her gaze. After a moment of silence, she finally opened her mouth. "Actually, I saw something yesterday." "You saw? What did you see?" "I saw your husband walking arm in arm with another woman." "Excuse me?" "So sorry for springing this on you. I might have seen it wrong." My mind raced with panic at her words. Bob having an affair with another woman? No, he wouldn't do that. But he hasn't been visiting the hospital lately. Could it be? I decided to confide in Lily. "Lily, I think what you saw was indeed Bob." "Eh? Why would you say?" "Bob hasn't visited the hospital in these past 2 weeks. Plus, he lied to me about working late yesterday." "No way. I can't believe Bob would do such a thing." "I called his office yesterday for the first time in a while, but he cut me off, saying he was busy. If he was cheating, that would make sense." "Alyssa, Lily, there's something I want to ask you." I decided to ask Lily to investigate my husband on my behalf. So she visited a detective agency and requested an investigation into my husband. 1 week later, seeing Lily's face after a long time, it was evident from her somber expression that the investigation results were not good. Struggling to start the conversation, I thanked her with a forced smile. "Lily, you've been investigating, right?" "Thank you. Can I see it?" "Alyssa, maybe you're better off not seeing this." "That's okay. I'm already expecting the worst." "But it's okay." I took the envelope from Lily and checked its contents. There were photos of my husband holding hands with another woman, kissing on the street. I couldn't help but feel a rush of anger, my hand shaking as I held the photos. He's been doing this behind my back while I've been sick. I sent a message to my husband on WhatsApp saying, "I need to talk to you at the hospital," and forcibly sent the worried Lily home. That evening, when my husband visited my hospital room, I confronted him directly. "I'll just ask straightforwardly, Bob. You're cheating, aren't you?" He seemed surprised for a moment, but then defiantly retorted, "So what if I am? And what if I've been having an affair? Are you going to blame me?" "Just tell me why. Why would you do such a thing?" "Why? Isn't it obvious? I don't love you anymore." Just like that, in a matter of weeks? Why would you suddenly, in response to my question, he threw back the cruelest words imaginable. "Have you looked at yourself in the mirror lately?" "What?" "You've washed your hair. Your eyes are sunken in, and you look sickly. To be blunt, you look like a ghost. Where's the charm of the woman I used to know?" "How can you say that?" "I don't want a woman who's bald and skeletal. That's why. Are you satisfied? With that, Bob averted his gaze from me. The man sitting across from me was a stranger, not the Bob I knew. Ignoring my silence, he pulled a piece of paper from his bag and shoved it in front of me. It was unmistakably divorce papers. Are you serious about this? Of course. Like I said, I don't have an ounce of love for you anymore. There's no point in us being together. But why? Listen, you've lost your charm as a woman. It's a waste of life to be married to someone like you. Do you plan on keeping me tied down to this hospital room forever? For both our sakes, please sign the divorce papers quickly. In that moment, the last sliver of hope I had held on to shattered. This man was no longer the Bob I knew. Staying married to him would only diminish my self-worth. With that realization, I picked up a pen with trembling hands and scribbled my signature. I thrust the signed divorce papers at Bob, speaking in an unusually low voice. Happy now? We're strangers from this point on. Don't ever show your face to me again. With that, Bob snorted in a taunting manner. I wouldn't want to be with a woman like you, even if you begged me. Enjoy your life with your illness. Good luck with your treatment. I hope you realize you won't find happiness this way. The last thing I need is a lecture from a sick woman like you. Goodbye. With those words, Bob left the hospital room. I lay back on the bed, staring blankly at the stark white ceiling. Ah, what a short-lived marriage that was. What on earth was my life with him all about? Is this what married life is inevitably like? While I felt an enormous void inside of me, the feeling of not having to deal with such a jerk ever again was also substantial. With that in mind, I felt a bit lighter. 2 years later, having endured life with illness, I was finally discharged from the hospital with Lily's support. Now I'm living alone in an apartment, and though it's part-time, I've managed to return to work. On Lily's recommendation, I've also started using social media. By sharing my changing appearance on social media, I was able to connect with others who had overcome cancer. I was finally starting to regain a fulfilling life. It was one day like any other when my ex-husband called my cell phone. Hello? Ah, Alyssa. You've been discharged, huh? Good for you. And why do you care? And who told you? I saw it on your social media. You were out somewhere the other day, right? Sneaking a look at your ex-wife's social media is creepy. Can you stop it, please? Don't be like that. I was just calling because I was worried. That's fine then. Goodbye. Just as I was about to hang up, he shouted over the phone, Wait, hold on. What? Well, where are you living now? Why would I need to tell you that? The thing is, I need your help. What? After we divorced, my affair was exposed at work and I got fired. I borrowed money to get by, and now my debts have gotten out of hand. Is that so? And? Now I'm about to be kicked out of the apartment we used to live in, so please, I need your help. What about your mistress? You have a girlfriend, right? I broke up with her a long time ago. The moment I lost my job, she disappeared. Can you believe that? As if he was saying, I'm not in the wrong. It's the company that fired me, and the woman I cheated with. His attitude reeked of denial, and it left me absolutely disgusted. This man had not grown at all. I told him straight out, I'm sorry, but I have no intention of dealing with you anymore. What? Why? We were married once, weren't we? What are you talking about? We're divorced. We're just strangers now, aren't we? Don't mess with me. Do you know how much I supported you after you fell sick? You should repay that debt. Debt? Yeah, that's right. I was the one who was there for you, supporting your mental health when you lost all your hair. And now, you won't even help me when I'm in trouble? Had he forgotten that he was the one who cheated on me? His selfish attempts to paint me as the bad guy left me shaking with anger. Enough. Who do you think you are? Who was the one who cheated on me while I was battling my illness? Don't give me that crap over a little cheating. It was because you were too pitiful to look at. What? I don't know anything about that. I was in the depths of despair, suffering from illness, and then you betrayed me and pushed me further down. Do you understand that? What the? Calm down, will you? Calm down? How do you expect me to do that? How many more selfish things do you need to say to feel satisfied? How many more feelings do you need to trample on to feel satisfied? There's no way I'm going to help garbage like you. If anything, you should suffer more. Wait a minute. I was hoping we could get back together. What? Who said anything about getting back together? I don't want anything to do with someone who can betray people as easily as you do. I've made up my mind. I'm going to sue for emotional distress. Emotional distress? He probably didn't expect to be sued for emotional distress after calling me so casually. My ex-husband began to panic. Well, wait a minute. Emotional distress? I told you, I don't have any money right now. I don't care. It's none of my business. Hey, Alyssa, shut up. Don't you dare call my name so casually. I'll never forget what you did to me, and I'll never forgive you. The scars of your cheating while I was pregnant and fighting disease will never fade. I'll squeeze every penny out of you for emotional distress and make you suffer even more. Well, wait. Help me. I ignored his pleas and hung up the phone. I blocked his number so I wouldn't have to hear his voice again and headed straight to the lawyer's office. The evidence of his affair that Lily had found that day was, of course, still valid. Thanks to that, I was able to demand a significant amount of damages from my ex-husband and his mistress. As a result, they found themselves deep in debt, sinking as far as they could possibly go. My ex, who had been fired from his previous job, seemed to have a hard time finding steady employment and apparently had to work multiple part-time jobs. Rumor has it that he's been living on the run, trying to avoid debt collectors. On the other hand, I'm living a peaceful life by myself. Recently, I've been able to work more hours and have started to spend money on my hobbies. My current excitement is a trip to Hawaii with Lily next month. I've caused her quite a bit of trouble, so I'm covering all the travel expenses. But to be honest, I'm planning to use the damages from his infidelity for the trip. LOL. Being married isn't the only path to happiness. What really matters is having friends who genuinely care about you. I intend to cherish the best friend who helped me during that time for the rest of my life.
If you want to see your grandchild, send us $2,000 every month. If you don't like it, we'll just cut you off. Sophia, my daughter-in-law, laughed mockingly after saying this. My son John didn't take my side. He simply nodded in agreement with Sophia. There's no way I could forgive such behavior. My son and his wife have always treated me poorly, but I don't recall doing anything to deserve this. Even though we're in-laws, I've always tried my best to be a good family member and not be a burden just because I'm older. And this is how they repay me? I can't take their terrible attitude anymore. If they want to treat me poorly, I can do the same to them. My name is Grace, a housewife in her 70s. I live with my husband. We have one son, John, who graduated from a prestigious private university. He now works for a corporation and lives in Boston. 2 years after John moved to Boston, he brought home a fiancée to introduce to us. She seemed like a quiet and calm woman. We approved of their marriage because we trusted John's choice. They had a grand wedding in Boston afterwards. Everything seemed fine between our families, so I thought. We're in good hands. After their marriage, they moved close to our home. Sophia was planning to get pregnant, and our town has a major university hospital, so it was convenient for them. I thought it was a bit early for them to have kids, but no one questioned their decision when we saw how much they both loved children and Sophia's strong desire to become a mother. At first, it seemed like we were getting along just fine as nearby in-laws, but everything changed when Sophia got pregnant. Grace, can you come over right now? I can't get any housework done. You've been through this, haven't you? Why won't you come and help? Are you even a mother-in-law? Sophia suddenly called me over like that and dumped all sorts of chores on me. cleaning, laundry, and cooking. My wife is on edge. Pregnancy is tough, you know. It's only natural for her to be snappy if her in-laws, who should be helping, aren't. When I tried to confront John about Sophia's behavior, he dismissed me like that. Grace, can you send me $1,000 right now? I'm really strapped for cash this month. I mean, I've come all this way, heavy with child, to see you. The least you could do is help me out. When she showed up unannounced and said this, I couldn't turn her away from my front door. To make matters worse, she made a scene, yelling, "You're heartless, Grace! Your eldest son's wife is struggling, and you won't lift a finger? If I knew it'd be like this, I never would have moved nearby. Don't ever expect me to take care of you when you're old." I started getting the cold shoulder from my neighbors as a result. The terrible attitude of my eldest son and his wife had become neighborhood gossip. All the negativity naturally made its way back to us. We'd get asked all sorts of questions about them, or hear about the nasty rumors circulating. Because of them, living in the community where we'd spent so many years became uncomfortable. We tried talking to them once, asking them to change their attitude, but they wouldn't listen. Sophia screamed, "You're harassing me when I'm already stressed from pregnancy." John chimed in, pointing a finger at me. "Harassment? You're awful. Makes me sick to think I was raised by you." Ever since then, they've been nothing but rude to me, treating me like a housekeeper whenever we're together. We didn't want to cause any more drama, so we couldn't be assertive with them. Their behavior continued to escalate. Last month, they had a baby. Despite us reaching out and saying, "We'd love to meet our grandchild," they've kept us completely cut off. "When our kid meets someone like you, they'll turn out all wrong." When Sophia said this, it made my blood boil, but I held back to avoid more conflict. Still, my frustration with them kept growing. That day, they showed up at our house unannounced again. As soon as we opened the door, they waltzed in and brazenly sat down on our living room couch. "Grace, you can't even offer your guests some tea? Normally you'd serve some nice snacks, wouldn't you?" They acted as if they owned the place. It's unacceptable behavior to just show up and act like this. I can't consider people with attitudes like yours as guests. We didn't have plans to meet today, did we? Could you please leave? And what about the grandchild? You didn't just leave them alone, did you? I glared at them and said. Sophia retorted, "As if we'd neglect our precious child. A friend offered to babysit, so we took them up on it. Unlike you, Grace, we actually put our child first." Her words implied that I hadn't cared for John, that I'd been negligent in raising him. I've done my best with raising my children, you know, even if the results weren't what I'd hoped for. See, that's exactly what bugs me. When I look at you, Grace, it's clear you don't really care about your kids. If you truly cherish them, wouldn't your son treat you differently? Sophia smirks as if to provoke me, but I can't let words like that sway me now. I've grown accustomed to Sophia's harsh comments. However, what she said next was unforgivable. You might act all high and mighty, but aren't you planning to use your son to get my child? Don't you think he'll listen to his mother? And don't you resent me for stealing your son? Her words made me snap. Nothing she's saying is anything more than her imagination. It's not at all how I feel. Yet what stung the most was John casting a disdainful look at me after hearing Sophia, as if to say, "So you're thinking that, huh?" "Stop it! You're way off base! This is all in your head." Sophia laughs as if it is all a joke. All in my head. Good luck convincing me of that. I see right through you, you know. But I don't harbor any of the feelings Sophia describes. For me, John is practically a stranger at this point. I have no emotional attachment to him. Just to set the record straight, I don't think the way you imagine. I can't consider someone who acts like this my son. Upon hearing this, John turns red and shouts, "What? What are you talking about? Despite being blood-related, you'd say something like that? You're unbelievable!" I get it. From John's perspective, it feels like I'm negating our parent-child relationship. But wouldn't it be better if he got mad at Sophia instead of getting mad at this? Tolerating Sophia's behavior while demanding proper treatment for himself, that's incredibly selfish. So I firmly told him, "Who's the real monster here? A son who laughs along while his wife insults his mother is not a son I can acknowledge." Then Sophia stood up and intervened. "Hold on a second. What you're saying is too harsh. You're going to hurt your son's feelings. You shouldn't say things like that as his mother. Apologize right now." Whose fault is that things have got this bad? I was further irritated by their forgetful attitude, but I gritted my teeth and endured. "Seriously, isn't this all because of the way you, Grace, are behaving? We're family. Shouldn't we get along? Bickering like this won't solve anything," Sophia said, acting like the voice of reason. John nodded as if moved by Sophia's words. "My wife is really wonderful." Wonderful? She ruins other families while boosting her own image. There's no way a woman like Sophia who keeps doing this can be a wonderful wife. I was fed up with Sophia's behavior, and also with John, who was falling for it. I didn't want any more arguments. Yet, inevitably, bickering would start because they instigated it, benefiting only Sophia in the end. How can I break this vicious cycle? I tried talking to my husband and thought of my own solutions, but each time Sophia would override them, lowering my value while elevating her own. After all these events, I was completely worn out. In the end, for several months, I couldn't see my grandchild. I'd asked my eldest son and his wife several times to let me see them, but I was always told they didn't want me to, and was turned away at their door. Despite this, my eldest son and his wife continued to visit our home unannounced, and the stress kept piling up. One day I was called to their house. I was wondering what it could be about when Sophia, with a serious expression, said, "We have something to discuss. Grace, we'd like to ask for an allowance. Is that okay?" I was puzzled by Sophia's words. It would make sense if we were asking for money, since my husband is retired and we're living on a pension. But John is still working and they make a decent income. It seemed absurd to be asked for money by them. "Why do you need an allowance? Doesn't my son make enough money?" "Oh, come on. The details don't matter. Just give us some money and that'll be that. We won't ask for much." Neither Sophia nor John would tell me why they needed the money. Given that there was no way I could agree to an allowance, "I'm sorry, but I have to decline. We can't afford to give an allowance without even knowing the reason," I responded. Sophia's face turned red as she exclaimed, "Are you really a mother? Your son and daughter-in-law are struggling, and you won't even help?" And that's what she blurted out. "Go ahead, blame me all you want. I'm not giving you a dime for your support." "You're just heartless. No wonder even your own son can't stand you." "That's irrelevant. If you change your attitude, maybe I'd reconsider." Sophia burst out laughing right there and said, "Change my attitude. I've always had the perfect attitude for a person like you, Grace. If you want to see your grandchild, send me $2,000 every month. If you don't like it, we can just cut ties and you won't see us." I couldn't believe my ears at Sophia's words. Sophia kept laughing, and John chimed in. "Well said." I had no allies in this room. I couldn't stand being controlled by Sophia anymore, so I just stopped caring. Fine, let's cut ties then. The thought of not having to see your faces anymore actually feels liberating. At my words, Sophia, who had been laughing, froze. Wait, what? Are you serious? As if she never expected me to respond that way. When I thought about it, my answer was only natural. For 2 years I've been harassed by my eldest son and his wife. They'd tell me to lend them money or suddenly summon me to do housework. If I refused, they'd call me heartless. There's no way I wouldn't be fed up with them. Cutting ties with them would be a perfect opportunity for me to discard this burden. I am serious. The thought of not having to see your faces feels liberating. I'll even draft a formal document so you can't approach me later. Sophia, not expecting my eagerness, shouted, "Oh, wait a minute! Grace, have you lost your mind? If you cut ties with us, you won't be able to see your son or your grandchild. And there's no way you can survive, just the two of you elderly people. You don't have anyone else to take care of you, right? There's no one who would care for broke seniors. So please, think it over," Sophia retorted. Despite being the one who suggested we cut ties, Sophia now had the audacity to say all this. I couldn't help but sigh at her short-sightedness. Well, to be honest, I've wanted to distance myself from you guys for a long time now. I just never found the right moment to say it. But since you brought it up, it seemed like the perfect time. Sophia responded, "I never thought you'd take me seriously. We can't live without your help. Your son has actually already quit his job. Please, help us." I couldn't help but exclaim, "What?" John, on the other hand, was awkwardly avoiding eye contact. According to Sophia, John quit his job thinking they didn't need to work as long as I was willing to lend them money. Sophia had tried to talk him out of it, but John didn't listen and quit his job without her consent. Apparently, they were both now working part-time to make ends meet, while their son was left at a friend's house. Sophia mentioned they were burdening this friend by leaving their son there 5 days a week. They were recently warned by this friend, who refused to look after their son anymore. Sophia went on to say that they had planned to leave the child with me, who has been eager to meet him and also benefit from some financial help. I was almost laughing at how naive my eldest son and his wife were, but I listened to the end. Sophia sincerely apologized at that moment. "Please, Grace, help us. Without your help, your son and grandson will face hardships. You are the only one we can rely on." Sophia apologized deeply, tears streaming down her face. But her convenience-driven attitude made my anger boil over. After the way they've treated me, now they come running when they find themselves in trouble, looking to take advantage of me. It was clear they would make foolish choices again if I let them off the hook now. I'm sorry, but no matter how much you apologize, I won't be sending any money or spending any time with my grandson. We will keep our distance as initially planned. Please don't say such harsh things. We're family, aren't we? Isn't it natural for family to help each other out in times of need? Family? You're the ones who treated this family like it's disposable, remember? When I confronted her like that, Sophia went silent. She always blabs about anything that suits her, but shuts up when it's convenient. Really unfair, I thought. You guys really should rethink what family means. Family is for support, not for exploiting. You can't even understand that basic idea, yet you became parents. You're really pitiful. Even after I said this, neither Sophia nor John had any retorts. Seeing them look down and avoid eye contact, I felt there was nothing more to say. I walked out of my eldest son's home and cut ties with them, just as I had announced. In the end, I never got to see my grandchild. But given the parents, I doubted I'd ever find the child genuinely adorable anyway. I'm fine with how things turned out. I heard later from friends that after cutting ties with us, the couple began fighting constantly. It was inevitable. They divorced. Sophia got custody, but she's too busy with work. Her parents are taking care of the child. Sophia and John continue to work part-time jobs, grinding away each day and coming home exhausted. As for me, the source of stress is gone, and I'm enjoying a peaceful life. Actually, I've been coordinating with Sophia's parents, meeting my grandchild when Sophia isn't around. Despite being born to those two, the kid's still adorable. When I extend my finger towards my sleeping grandchild, the tiny hand grips it, filling me with genuine love. Sophia's parents are decent people, so unless something drastic happens, a good relationship should continue. Although we've become strangers to our grandchild, we still want to watch him grow, even from afar.
A wife who can't have kids is worthless. If you don't get pregnant soon, I'll have a child with someone else.
Tired of being blamed and bullied every day for our infertility, I divorced my husband. I had married the only son of a family that runs a historic hotel, only to realize they saw me as nothing more than a tool for producing children. After the divorce, I got pregnant with my new husband. After giving birth, I decided to visit my ex-husband's hotel to execute a certain plan. My name is Zena, and I'm turning 35 this year. I married Tony, who's the same age as me, 3 years ago. We met at the hotel where I worked. His family owns a hotel in a tourist area, and he came to my hotel for a 1-year training program to learn a high level of hospitality. Though he was initially puzzled by the different customer service methods, I found his dedication admirable. He seemed to be impressed with my work ethic as well. We got along well, partly because we were the same age, and eventually became a couple after he asked me out. When his training ended and he was about to return to his hometown, he proposed, saying, "I don't want to be apart. Will you come with me?" He had been divorced before, so my parents objected, but we managed to persuade them and got married. His family runs a well-known historic hotel in the area. Currently, his father was the manager, his mother the assistant manager, and his sister a concierge. My husband was in a sort of managerial training position. I thought I would help out at the family hotel after marriage, but his mother told me, "Zena, just be a housewife and give us grandchildren as soon as possible." Apparently, the issue of who would inherit the hotel was a contentious one. The family was divided into 2 factions, one supporting his sister and the other supporting my husband. His sister already had a daughter in middle school, so her faction had the upper hand. His mother, who favored him, was not pleased. "If Tony has a child, everyone's opinion will change, so have a child as soon as possible," she would always say to me. But a year passed, and we still didn't have a child. My husband, who initially said, "We're not getting any younger, so it'd be great to have a child soon," started blaming me, saying, "Hurry up, or my sister will become the heir. Why can't you get pregnant?" Of course, his mother would also berate me almost daily, saying,
"Why haven't you had a child after a year? What do you think we made you a housewife for?"
I was starting to resent being treated like a tool for my husband to become the heir by both him and his mother. One day his mother suggested,
"Why don't you go get tested, Zena?"
I had been wondering if either of us had a problem since we hadn't conceived after nearly 2 years of marriage, so I agreed. "I'll check with Tony and we'll go together," I said. She retorted,
"What? You're saying Tony might have a problem? It's your fault we don't have grandchildren."
I was angry at her for assuming the problem was solely mine, but I thought if it turned out I was fine, she would encourage him to get tested too. Reputation seemed to be crucial in the hotel business, as even a small rumor could affect it.
"We can't have rumors that the wife of our hotels here is infertile,"
she said. So I had to go to a big hospital in the city. It was quite a distance, so even though I left in the morning, I didn't get back until after 6 o'clock. As soon as I got home, my mother-in-law called. The timing was as if she had been watching me.
"So, Zena, what did the doctor say? Did they find out what's wrong?"
Her tone still suggested that the problem was with me. "No, the doctor said there's no specific cause. They think it might be due to daily fatigue, poor diet, and stress."
"Fatigue? Stress? What are you talking about? You're just lounging around the house all day. Maybe you should change doctors."
I wanted to shout, "Your comments are causing my stress. You're the one who sent me to a far-off hospital because you're worried about rumors." But I held back, knowing she'd just blame me again. I told my husband what the doctor said, but his reaction was the same as his mother's.
"Just get pregnant already."
I wanted him to get checked too, so I said, "I want you to come with me next time."
"Do you think I have that kind of time? And I'm more recognizable than you. Even in the next city over, there's no guarantee I won't run into a client. Do you know how much it would affect the hotel if rumors spread that my wife is infertile? You're really causing trouble."
With that, he stormed off to his room. I continued going to the fertility clinic alone. He never once came with me, and whenever I asked him to get tested, he'd just yell,
"There's nothing wrong with me."
Yet he kept blaming me, saying,
"Why aren't you pregnant yet? What's the point of going to the hospital?"
His mother was the same. Then one day, as I was on my way to the clinic, I saw my husband at a cafe near the clinic. I thought I was mistaken, but it was definitely him. I was about to walk over, happy that he might be willing to go to the clinic with me, when a woman joined him. They held hands and walked off together. I followed them, and they went into a nearby hotel. I was stunned. I couldn't bring myself to go to the clinic that day, and went straight home. The image of my husband with that woman wouldn't leave my mind. In the evening, as usual, my mother-in-law called. I didn't feel like answering, but she kept calling. Finally, I picked up and she yelled,
"Why aren't you answering the phone?"
Before I could explain, she bombarded me with questions.
"How was the hospital? What did the doctor say? Are you pregnant this time?"
I didn't feel like answering any of it and just said, "I took the day off from the clinic." When I said that, she snapped.
"You're infertile and you're not even going to the hospital? You're negligent. Come to our home after 10 o'clock tonight when things have settled down."
The last thing I wanted was to go to her home, especially today. I didn't want to talk to her more than usual. And more than that, I didn't want to see my husband's face. But then I thought this could be an opportunity. I could tell my in-laws what I saw today, ask them to tell my husband to stop cheating, and to be more proactive about fertility treatment. But things didn't go as planned. When I went to my in-laws' place, both parents and my sister-in-law and her husband were there.
"Why didn't you go to your appointment, Zena?"
On my way to the clinic, I saw Tony with another woman, going into a hotel. I couldn't bring myself to go to the appointment after that. When I answered my mother-in-law's question like that, Tony sneered at me.
"Finally caught on, huh? I thought you knew all along."
Come to think of it, he had been going out more often for work events and parties with clients for the past 6 months. While I was lost in thought, my husband continued,
If you don't get pregnant soon, she might beat you to it.
As I was left speechless, it was my mother-in-law who responded,
At this point, I don't care who gives me a grandchild. Good for you, Tony, for finding someone. Show me my grandchild soon.
I couldn't believe it. Not just my mother-in-law, but my husband who agreed, and my father-in-law and sister-in-law's family who said nothing. I want a divorce, I said quietly. Any lingering affection for my husband vanished with his last comment. Instead of trying to stop me, he mocked.
How will an infertile housewife like you survive? No one will take you.
But Tony, that's great. Your infertile wife is leaving on her own. It's a good thing you got caught cheating. My mother-in-law seemed delighted. And so I divorced my husband, Tony. The divorce was bad for the hotel's reputation, so my mother-in-law, who had always told me to hide my infertility, suddenly started talking openly about it. She went around telling people,
It's not good for the hotel to have an infertile wife, so we had her leave.
As if I was entirely to blame, trying to justify Tony's divorce. 2 years after my divorce, I remarried. I had told my current husband that I might be infertile, but he's a very warm person who accepted me. And I got pregnant with our child. I couldn't believe it, and I went to 3 different OBGYNs, but they all confirmed that I was pregnant. I remember celebrating with my husband until morning. We shared our joy, cried, laughed, and then realized we shouldn't be up so late for the baby's sake. During the pregnancy, I took extra care with my diet and exercise to minimize risks due to my age. When our son was born, I was so moved that I forgot all the pain and struggles I had been through. I was grateful to my current husband for giving me the joy of holding a child. Meanwhile, I had been nurturing a plan since my pregnancy. After our son's 6-month checkup, I decided to execute it. Yes, I decided to visit Tony's hotel with my current husband and son. I wondered how many people would remember me in Tony's hometown, but it seemed like more people did than I thought, as some people were glancing at us. When we arrived at the hotel, the assistant manager, my former mother-in-law, greeted us along with the staff. Since my last name had changed after my marriage, no one seemed to realize at the time of booking.
Welcome, thank you for coming all this way, right this way,
she said, and the look on her face when she finally looked up and saw me was unforgettable. Her face was a mix of surprise and regret, not a good look for the assistant manager of a historic hotel. Still, she had no choice but to put on a fake smile and instructed the staff to show us to our room. After relaxing in the room for a while, I asked my husband to take our son for a walk for about 2 hours. I told my kind husband that I wanted to have a serious talk with the assistant manager here, as they had helped me in the past. He agreed without hesitation. After they left, I asked the staff to call the assistant manager and Tony, who had been promoted from a trainee manager to the same position as my ex-mother-in-law. About 30 minutes later, the 2 of them arrived. Tony probably heard about the situation from his mother and was glaring at me as he entered.
I wanted to thank you for the past.
Thanks to divorcing Tony, I found someone new and even had a son. We're here to enjoy your hotel. As I said this, my former mother-in-law's face twisted more and more.
You probably didn't give birth to that child. He's from a previous marriage or a relative, right? You don't have to go to such lengths to show off.
My ex-husband said, as if he knew everything. At his words, my former mother-in-law's face brightened for a moment. In response, I placed my son's birth certificate on the table. As you can see from this, he is genuinely my son. Their faces twisted at my words and the certificate. I continued without concern. I just wanted to let you know that I had a son since both of you were so worried about my infertility. Turns out I'm not infertile, I said sarcastically. My former mother-in-law looked at Tony nervously and muttered,
Is that so?
Unable to withstand her gaze, Tony abruptly stood up and left the room. The remaining former mother-in-law also staggered to her feet and mumbled,
Please enjoy your stay,
before leaving. It was a completely spiritless appearance, unbecoming of an assistant manager of a historic hotel. I felt satisfied and didn't call them again, but deliberately wandered around the hotel with my husband and son. Some of the staff and guests seemed to remember me and looked at Tony and my former mother-in-law. I was very satisfied. My plan was a huge success. In the hotel business, reputation is everything. Even a small rumor can be a death sentence in this industry. In that area, hotels are packed close together, so one hotel's bad reputation is another hotel's gain. In other words, people eagerly spread bad news about competing hotels. When my ex-mother-in-law found out Tony and I were divorcing, she spread the rumor that I couldn't have kids and that's why we're divorcing to save face. But 2 years later, when I visited the hotel, I had a husband and a son. This made people around us wonder if maybe, just maybe, that rumor wasn't true. And let me tell you, the new rumor spread like wildfire. At the time, Tony was planning to remarry the daughter of a famous hotel owner, and there were talks of a partnership between the hotels. But the rumor reached the ears of that hotel owner, and both the remarriage and partnership deals fell through. Tony's family, who had been renovating parts of the hotel in anticipation of the partnership, now faced financial difficulties. Soon enough, the financial difficulties became another damaging rumor, and their once prestigious hotel was now labeled as a hotel that's only old, with no money or quality to speak of. Most of the staff quit, and even my ex-sister-in-law left her family's failing business to help her husband's company. Now it seems Tony and his parents are struggling to keep the hotel afloat, unable to manage everything. As a result, the number of guests have dwindled, and the business has worsened. Some renovations were abandoned halfway, making the hotel look even shabbier, which led to even fewer guests. Now, if you book in advance, you can pretty much book the entire hotel to yourself. As for me, I'm living happily with my loving husband and adorable son. We're expecting our second child next spring, and I'm enjoying my time as a homemaker, preparing for our new addition. I plan to continue cherishing my wonderful family. As for revenge on my ex's family, I feel somewhat satisfied, but I'm thinking of sending them a greeting card featuring our annual family photo every year.
Can people who don't own this place just pack up their stuff and leave? You barely make any money, yet you have the nerve to squat in a luxury apartment? I agree. I'll start packing right away, I calmly said and headed to the bedroom. As we crossed paths, Laura smirked at me, saying, "Even Eric, making $200,000 a year, had to give up his high-rise condo. Poor Lenora." Who's really the poor one here? I muttered under my breath. Hearing this, Laura scoffed. "What? Quit your whining and just pack your stuff already." With Laura's tone in the background, I silently packed up my things. I then placed the suitcase full of their belongings in front of Eric. "Here, I've packed all your stuff. Both of you, get out of the apartment now." The story goes back to my student days. My name is Lenora. A family of 4, including my younger sister Laura, my parents, and me. Laura and I have been unlike each other in appearance and character since we were young. I'm tall and unsociable, while Laura is petite and charming. My parents adored Laura like a princess, and she grew up believing that being doted on was normal. I had better grades in school, but when Laura noticed, she began to showcase her superiority in areas other than academics. Whenever my parents tried to compliment my academic achievements, Laura would immediately steer the conversation to how popular she was at school. "Who cares about grades? Listen to this. I've been chosen for the lead role in the school play for the cultural festival. Everyone recommended me." My parents quickly showed interest in Laura's exciting news. "Wow, that's amazing. Way to go, Laura. You've always been loved by everyone." "Good communication skills are more important than studying nowadays, right?" Lenora, do you even have friends? You're always reading books, even in middle school. While my parents also showered me with love, Laura seemed not to appreciate even that. Lenora, what would you like for your upcoming birthday gift? I'd like a winter coat. Let's go shopping for it soon. Upon hearing our conversation, Laura immediately told Mom. I'd like a coat for my birthday next month, too. Really? Well, let's go shopping together then. The family shopping trip was entirely dictated by Laura's pace. I want to shop here. The store Laura chose had designs that I'd never wear. Too cute for my taste. I was thinking of something a little more subdued. Oh, come on. It's a hassle to go to different stores, so just pick something from here, Lenora. With that, Laura had me try on a coat she spotted. How about this? Try it on. I'm not really a fan of it. Just try it on. It'll look good on you, trust me. I ended up reluctantly buying the coat Laura had me try on, even though I didn't like the design. On the way home from shopping, Laura discreetly approached me. Lenora, I'm glad you bought it, but that design might not have been the best fit for your plain looks. Even someone like me eventually got a boyfriend in high school. Hey, Lenora, is it true you're dating the baseball team's co-captain? Yeah, I guess. A few days later, Laura announced to me, I'm dating the captain of the baseball team now, Lenora. Oh, really? Your boyfriend is the co-captain, and mine is the captain. I win. Sure you do. Laura always seemed to be competing with me, but it didn't really bother me. Despite my nonchalant attitude, Laura continued to harbor hostility towards me. After I graduated college and got a job at an IT firm, Laura landed a job as a receptionist at a well-known company 2 years later. My company is way more famous than yours, Lenora. Even the recruiters know what's up. I'll have my pick of highly educated, high-earning men. I'll marry rich and then quit. Laura said this with a sense of triumph. It seemed Laura's primary goal was not to work, but to find a wealthy husband at the company. As she declared, Laura dated various men, both inside and outside the company, and she reported each new relationship to me. Don't you have a boyfriend, Lenora? I find my job fascinating at the moment, so I'm not too concerned about having a boyfriend. At this, Laura laughed sarcastically. That's such a not popular excuse, Lenora. In that small company of yours, you're never going to find a decent man. But a year later, I met Eric, and things moved quickly. We got engaged. When I introduced Eric to my family as my fiancé, Laura was genuinely surprised. Lenora, didn't you say you didn't need a boyfriend? At that time, I really felt that way. Eric quickly jumped in to ease the tension. Laura, love is unpredictable, you know? A cute girl like you would understand what I'm saying. Yes? Laura blushingly responded to Eric's smooth smile. Then she leaned in to whisper to me. Lenora, where did you find such a handsome guy? Is he from your company? No, we don't work at the same place. I thought so. There's no way your company could have someone that great. So, is he from a big-name firm? His eloquence makes me think he's global or something, right? Laura seemed to assume from my vague response that Eric was from a high-profile company. Thanks to Eric's natural social skills, talks about our wedding with my parents went smoothly. We opted for a small ceremony with just close friends and family. Laura kept complaining. I want to meet Eric's colleagues. Then Eric and I began our newlywed life. After moving in, we invited my parents and Laura to our new home. Laura was shocked. No way! This is your new place? This isn't just any upscale apartment in Boston. How much does he earn? Laura pressed me excitedly. Does he make around $500K a year? Come on, tell me. No way, not that much. So $400K? No. Finally. Fine, $200K, right? Well, about that, yeah. Laura, having pried the salary out of me, was muttering to herself. Handsome, eloquent, and high-earning? Lenora gets everything. Then she unilaterally declared a sort of competition. I'll find a guy who's more handsome and earns more than Eric. You'll see. After that, Laura became more active in looking for a marriage partner, often attending matchmaking parties. However, a few months later, she started to visit us frequently. And it seemed she was even coming over when I was at work. Hey, Eric, did Laura visit again today? How long was she here? Oh, I don't remember exactly when. I chatted with her a bit, and then she left soon after. Ah, yes, I appreciate your always being there for my family. What are you talking about? Your family is my family, Lenora. Eric's words put me at ease, and I stopped worrying about how often Laura was visiting our home. One day, after coming home from work, I found Eric and Laura sitting together in the living room, waiting for me. Laura, you're here again. What's going on with you two? As I asked, Eric looked serious. Lenora, we need to talk. Please have a seat. Talk about what? The truth is, I want to break up. What? What are you saying? I want to divorce you and marry Laura. Are you kidding me? I have a child with Laura. What? Laura chimed in, grinning. Sorry, Lenora. I'm in love with Eric. We want to be a happy family with our child, so we need you to step aside. It turns out Laura had been cheating with Eric all along. While I stood in disbelief, Laura continued. Ever since you introduced Eric to me, I've been looking for someone better. But finding someone as wonderful as Eric, making $200K a year, was hard. Now that I think about it, Laura did seem unusually interested in Eric. Laura kept going. Then, I bumped into Eric one day while walking. He was so comforting when I was feeling down. That's when I realized I could just take Eric away from you. What a selfish mindset. My anger began to boil. Laura didn't notice. So, I win again, huh? If you step aside, it proves I'm better than you. I was trembling with rage. Laura's selfish behavior had always been an issue. But I'd let it slide because we're family. Not this time. I cannot sit idly by and be treated in such a terrible way. I wouldn't forgive either of them. Fine, I said calmly. Oh, great. I knew you'd step aside easily. After all, a plain person like you doesn't deserve someone as great as Eric. So now that it's settled, you'll be packing up and leaving this fancy apartment that's too good for you, right? Hearing Laura's words, Eric quickly responded. Whoa, hold on. Whether or not I own this apartment doesn't matter. Let's sit down and talk this through. Laura shot him down immediately. Are you kidding me? You don't even make much money, and you want to stay in a luxury apartment? How shameless. I agree. I'll start packing now, I said quietly and headed to the bedroom. Passing by, Laura said to me with a laugh. Aw, poor Lenora, having to give up a $200,000 a year guy like Eric, and a fancy high-rise apartment. Who's the real loser here? I mumbled under my breath. Hearing that, Laura scoffed. Excuses, excuses. Just go pack your stuff. With Laura's voice in the background, I silently packed up. I put all the packed belongings in front of Eric. Here, all of your stuff is in here. Now leave this apartment. Laura looked stunned at my words. What are you saying? You're the one who's supposed to leave. No, it's Eric and Laura who need to leave. Both of you. What are you talking about? You're the one who said it's shameless to stay in a luxury apartment without making much money, Laura. Eric, you get what I'm saying, right? Could you please explain it to clueless Laura here? Eric spoke in a voice so quiet it could disappear. This apartment isn't mine. What do you mean? I didn't buy this apartment. Lenora did, so it's in her name. Laura's face contorted. Why would you put it in Lenora's name? Eric should be the owner since he makes more. Eric's voice kept getting softer. My income is actually less than Lenora's. What? But you make $200K a year. That $200K is Lenora's salary, not mine. You're lying. Finally, it seemed like Laura understood. Our household income is about $200,000, but most of that comes from me. After landing a job at an IT company and overseeing a successful app business, my income had increased significantly, and that's when I met Eric. Back then, I started dating Eric because his cheerful personality was a relief to me during my hectic work days. I figured that once we got married, he would give up his part-time job lifestyle. But as my income increased, Eric worked less and less. By the time I had told Laura everything, she had turned pale. Wait, Eric has a job, right? He's not unemployed. He pretty much is. I stuck around with him because he was emotionally supportive when I was busy. But he's just a man of empty words who eats through our savings. You've done me a favor by taking him off my hands. But Eric always paid for high-end restaurants on our dates, and even bought me designer clothes. That means he has savings, right? Hearing Laura, I couldn't help but smirk. That's just Eric, always putting on a show. He's been reckless with his credit card just to impress people. I was the one cleaning up his financial mess. From now on, our accounts will be separate. You two figure out how to handle the bills. Wait, you mean he was blowing through money on a credit card without savings? Who does that? Who knows? I can't figure out the mind of a man dumb enough to cheat with his wife's sister. Oh, and the mind of a woman dumb enough to cheat with her sister's husband is beyond me, too. So you mean my dreams of marriage to a man earning $200K and living a luxurious life in a high-rise condo are shattered? Without any mercy, I kicked both the pitiful Eric and the crumbling Laura out of my apartment. I quickly finalized my divorce with Eric and also filed for alimony. Neither of them had any say, given they had confessed to their infidelity. They had no choice but to comply with the financial demands. Even after learning that Eric was unemployed, Laura had no option but to marry him because she was pregnant with his child. She hoped that fatherhood would make him more responsible. However, Eric's lazy habits didn't change. Originally, he cheated with Laura, thinking she was richer than me, as she worked for a top-tier company, but he had no intention of working himself. He continued his part-time lifestyle, draining Laura's modest savings to pay off the divorce settlement, leaving no room for credit card debt repayment. Now newlyweds, Laura and Eric sank into a life of debt. They couldn't even afford a new place and had to live in Laura's old apartment. Laura, who quit her job expecting Eric's income, now had to work part-time from dawn till dusk to handle their rising debts and her growing belly. The couple is constantly fighting, becoming the talk of the neighborhood. On the other hand, my savings started to soar as soon as I got rid of Eric. I had plenty of money for self-improvement, and men started showing more interest in me, some of whom even had a higher income than me. If Laura were in my shoes, she would have jumped at the chance. But I know better than to choose a partner based on their income. I won't rush into another marriage like I did with Eric, and make the same mistake. I won't get married until I find someone who truly matches me. I have decided that, and now I am single-mindedly continuing my work.
What is this? Tastes like garbage. If I eat this, I'll get sick. Megan laughed and pointed at the dish I had prepared. I had tasted it before serving, and it didn't seem off to me. It was all just Megan being difficult. Andy and I had spent 3 days preparing for this. We were so excited to hear that our eldest son and his wife were coming over. Looking back, Andy and I felt foolish for getting our hopes up. Megan's rude behavior and Benny just going along with whatever she said wore us down. We felt so distant from them. Continuing a relationship with Megan seemed impossible for us. Maybe we need to set clear boundaries with her. Before I could confront Megan, Andy reached out to the dish. My name is Katie, a housewife in her 70s. I live with Andy. We have a son, Benny. After graduating from a prestigious private university, he got a job at a major company and lived alone in Boston. 2 years ago, he told us he was getting married. The woman Benny introduced as his fiancée seemed sweet and polite. According to Benny, after the wedding, they planned to move closer to us and wanted to bond with us, especially Megan. We were okay with it, but wondered how Megan felt. When we asked Benny, he said,
"Megan is excited. She wants to get closer to you guys."
So we welcomed their decision. About 2 months after their wedding, as promised, Benny and Megan moved near our house. We hoped to see more of Benny and get to know Megan better, but reality was harsher than we expected. Benny transferred from the company's headquarters to a branch in our town. He thought he could manage, but life wasn't as smooth. The problem was Megan's spending habits. Even when Benny earned well at the headquarters, Megan had a tendency to overspend. When Benny's salary decreased slightly after the transfer, Megan's spending didn't slow down, it escalated. No matter how much Benny earned, Megan spent most of it, leaving them struggling. Benny didn't care about his appearance and always lived a humble life. Benny was always out trying to earn more, and he hardly visited us. Megan didn't visit either, making their move seem pointless. Even though they lived nearby, we hardly saw them. Benny was always busy, and we hesitated to reach out to Megan directly. We felt helpless, knowing Benny was struggling. Even in this situation, Benny may be suffering and trying to somehow rebuild his life. Still, we tried to help by sending them $1,000 every month. We wished we could send more, but with Andy retired and us living on a pension, it was all we could manage. Every time we sent money, Benny would thank us, saying,
"I really appreciate it."
His voice always sounded so wary, and it broke our hearts every time. We wanted to be there for Benny, to support him as his parents. So we decided to help him in any small way we could. On days off, when we had some free time, we'd take him shopping. We'd treat him to a nice meal. When Benny and Megan were out, we'd borrow the key to their house and do a bit of cleaning for them. The things we could do were limited, and we didn't think these gestures would alleviate Benny's pain much. But doing something felt better than doing nothing. 2 years passed, and Benny's situation remained tough. Seeing Benny like this, we decided to take action. Our plan was to invite Benny and Megan for a meal. We thought Megan might decline a regular dinner invitation, so we decided to prepare a feast to entice them. When I proposed this to Andy, he was worried because he's not good at cooking, but he was proactive, even going out to buy ingredients. To our surprise, the promise of a feast worked, and both Benny and Megan agreed to come. For 3 days and nights, Andy and I worked on preparing the meal. Benny and Megan arrived at our house in the afternoon. They seemed to relax, as if trying to shake off the stresses of daily life. Benny looked exhausted, so we offered him our bedroom to rest. As Benny went to the bedroom, Megan, who seemed oblivious to our cooking preparations, lounged on the sofa watching TV. Suddenly, she walked into the kitchen and blurted out, "Why are you guys trying so hard with all this?" Caught off guard by her abrupt question, before we could respond, she continued, "Honestly, what's the point? Is it fun for you? If you have this much free time, why not work a bit and earn some money? Life must be tough for retirees, right? Ha ha ha." She laughed mockingly. I stepped forward. "Isn't it rude to say such things when you're invited for a meal? Where are your in-laws? Some respect would be nice." Megan's face turned red. "Are you trying to harass me? Do you think your words don't hurt me?" I had no intention of harassing her. I just wanted her to show basic courtesy. But seeing her twist my words and get angry, I was at a loss for what to say. Megan, seemingly satisfied with her outburst, returned to the living room. Andy looked upset, but we still had dinner to prepare, so we tried to refocus. Then, from the hallway, we heard Megan shouting, "Why are you always like this? Can't you be on my side for once? I'm your wife." We rushed out to see what was happening. Megan was standing in front of the bedroom door, and Benny, who should have been resting, was there too. "Why won't you support me? Why are you siding with your parents?" Megan yelled, grabbing Benny's shirt. Realizing this was getting out of hand, we intervened. Calm down, what's going on here? Andy held Megan back while I asked Benny what had happened. Exhausted, Benny explained the situation. He had been resting in the bedroom, trying to catch up on sleep due to his demanding job, but he was jolted awake by the sound of a door being slammed. When he opened it, he found an enraged Megan. She rambled about being harassed and called me the worst. Benny was confused and overwhelmed. Megan, in her heightened state, misunderstood Benny's silence as him taking our side and began accusing him, asking if he was truly her husband. Benny, groggy from sleep, couldn't process the situation and felt helpless. Seeing Benny like this, Megan's anger only intensified. Benny seemed to be caught in the crossfire, looking even more drained. I confronted Megan. It's not normal to wake up and yell at your tired husband. Do you realize how bizarre you're acting? Megan, perhaps feeling cornered, muttered an insincere apology, but her eyes betrayed no remorse. Despite the tension, we managed to sit down for dinner. Ribeye steaks, marinated seafood from the local market. We laid out the best we could offer. Benny seemed to appreciate it. But Megan, looking at the spread, snidely remarked, "Just because you serve this doesn't mean I'll forgive the harassment." It was disheartening to hear after all our efforts. Benny tried to lighten the mood with various topics, but Megan shut down each attempt with cold remarks. I told her, "You need to change your attitude," but she blatantly ignored me. The TV wasn't on, so I'm sure my words got through to Megan. To be honest, I felt depressed when I realized that I had clearly been deliberately ignored. Feeling disheartened, Andy tried to console me. We managed to say grace together before the meal. But after tasting a dish, Megan exclaimed, "What's this disgusting garbage? I'll get food poisoning from this." She laughed mockingly. Her cruel words left me speechless, but she continued to insult me. "You're trying to make me sick with this food, aren't you? Haha. Going to such lengths just to harass me? You're truly wicked, mother-in-law. Ha ha ha." Her words, dripping with disdain, made my hands tremble with anger. Why do we have to endure this? How can Megan treat others so cruelly? Seeing Benny so worn out, why doesn't she feel any urge to help? Why does she dismiss our kindness? I had so much I wanted to say to Megan, but I couldn't find the right words. But I couldn't let her continue this way. Andy, sensing my feelings, reached for his plate. "I've held my tongue until now, but I've reached my limit." Andy's deep voice echoed in the living room. Andy is usually calm, but when he's angry, it's truly intimidating. It's been a long time since I've seen him this upset. His anger unabated, Andy continued, "I'm cutting ties with you. Leave now." Andy yells at Megan. Even Megan seemed taken aback, her face turning pale. "What? Father-in-law? How can you say that to your daughter-in-law? Do you enjoy this harassment? I never thought even father-in-law would stoop so low." She retorted, tears in her eyes. But no matter what Megan said, Andy's stance remained firm. "I don't care if you call it harassment. I can't see you as family anymore. Leave." Hearing Andy's words, Megan finally understood. "Fine, I'll leave. From now on, I won't have anything to do with you or mother-in-law. You'll regret this." With that, she packed her things and left. I asked Benny if he wanted to go after her, but he seemed resigned. "It doesn't matter." He was engrossed in the meal before him, so we decided to let her go. Considering the potential for another confrontation if Benny went home, we decided to let him stay the night. Benny seemed relieved, not wanting to face Megan. That night, for the first time in a long while, we enjoyed some quality family time. We shared stories, grievances about Megan, and even slept in the living room, reminiscent of a camping trip. The tight fit of the comforter reminded me how much Benny had grown, but the peace was short-lived. The next morning, we were jolted awake by the doorbell. As expected, it was Megan. I looked around to see what was going on, and as expected, it was Megan who was ringing the doorbell. As Benny, Andy, and I discussed what to do, the door was pounded loudly. "Mother-in-law, I know you're in there. Benny hasn't come home. He's here, isn't he? Let him out now." Megan's words struck fear in me. I felt that if we handed Benny over to her now, things would take a turn for the worse. So we decided to let Megan in and have a discussion. The moment the door opened, Megan stormed in, glaring at me. "You think you can steal someone's husband? That's unbelievable," she shouted angrily. But her words didn't affect me anymore. "Steal? That's a harsh way to put it. We simply offered him a place to stay because of the way you've been treating him. He made the choice, not me. Blaming me is misplaced, don't you think?" Megan's face turned beet red. "You're the worst, mother-in-law and father-in-law, for letting you behave this way. Stay away from us forever." Her words no longer held any weight. Both Andy and I were ready to cut ties with Megan. The atmosphere was tense, but Benny's words changed everything. "I can't continue with you. Let's get a divorce." His statement stunned Megan, who had been red-faced with anger. "A divorce? Seriously, you choose mother-in-law over me?" Her tone shifted, and she looked at Benny with pleading eyes. Benny retorted, "A wife who neglects her duties and parties all the time versus my parents who've always been there for me. The choice is clear." Megan, still not convinced, said, "They're just manipulating you. Once they have you, they'll discard you too." Such baseless accusations. We never abandoned Benny. But Megan, desperate to paint us as villains, shouted hysterically, "You're trying to take Benny from me. Do you hate me that much?" At this point, it was unclear what could calm her down. Suddenly, Benny slapped Megan across the face. "Enough!" The room went silent. Megan, in shock, couldn't comprehend what had just happened. "You've not only been a burden to me, but also to my parents. Aren't you ashamed? I thought you'd come to your senses, but I was wrong." "Don't say such things. I love you. Please reconsider." "I've made up my mind. From today, we're strangers. Don't ever call yourself my wife again." Megan looked defeated. No one reached out to her. She eventually left, realizing there was no point in arguing. For the next few days, Benny stayed with us. He began the divorce process, which was finalized recently. Megan was reluctant to sign the papers, so they had to get a lawyer. Benny had evidence of Megan's reckless spending, which helped him secure the divorce. He also sought compensation in court. Benny was forced to work for Megan and was showing signs of a lifestyle disease. Megan's parents paid the settlement. Now in debt to her parents, Megan works day and night to repay them. After the divorce, Benny continued living with us for a while. We wanted to give him a break, especially after all he'd been through. Now, Benny is back on his feet, working hard every day. Life might throw more challenges at him, but we'll always be his parents. We'll support him in every way we can.